Hey everyone, so how are you all? So before moving further into lecture, today we are going to see about the complete backend roadmap. But before moving into that, uh, let me ask one thing to you all, that whether you want the entire lecture in English, complete English language, or in Hindi. So I'm comfortable with in both the languages, whether you want Hindi or English. Okay, so you just have to comment out according to your preferences. Now let's see what are the in-depth backend roadmap that everyone should follow. If you are like learning backend in totally in depth, then how you can start with the very scratch and how you can level up yourself. Okay, and this roadmap I have created according to me, and it is not like copy pasting from any kind of websites or like other preferences of other person, other backend engineers. Okay, so today in this lecture I'll be discussing first about the syllabus. Okay, first about the syllabus, and once after completing the syllabus I'll be talking about how we can create a project in microservice. Look, if you are new to this channel, you must not be knowing that what we all are creating. Okay, and if you have watched my previous videos on backend, then you should be knowing that we have already covered the basics of backend series, thereafter thereafter we have covered microservices architecture. And now afterwards, after this lecture, we will start creating our projects in microservices. Okay, so now let's get started with this backend roadmap first, and we'll see the entire thing later on. So first thing, let me tell you that whatever we will study right now, whatever we will see the roadmap right now, I have covered everything in detail, and I've created a full-fledged like playlist on this, on backend series, from starting to end. And now also I'm uploading day-to-day videos on that playlist. So if you haven't watched it, go watch it after this lecture. Okay, so now let's start with the roadmap. First, look, first we have node.js. First, if you're starting with this, we have node and express.js to start. Okay, so in the node and express.js, the very important topics that everyone should cover is like, what do we mean by like CRUD operations. This is the basic first requirement. The first is requirement is CRUD operations, to like about CRUD operations, how to create, how to like read, update, delete everything, like how we can use bcrypt.js for password hashing. These everything that I've included in CRUD operations only. And the third thing is JWT token, JWT verification. How do we use it? How do we do verification of that token? Okay, thereafter we have routing in express.js, like how we can create our own routes. Okay, what are the different http methods with the help of which we can create our routes? What are the different status codes that we can use? Okay, I'm just giving you a like overview of what we have seen earlier in the entire playlist, and now how you can follow this along to strengthen your code basic. Okay, so second one is routing in express.js. Third topic that we have covered is data validation. Fourth is middlewares in backend part. What do we mean by middlewares? What are the different types of middlewares? So we have covered every single detail. Like there are 5 types of middleware: error handling, third party, application level, router level, and built-in. So we have covered entire types of middleware. Thereafter, how we can how we can connect our backend to a database. We have used a non-relational database here, which is a MongoDB. How we can create our collections, how we can define our schemas, how we can create our models. All these are very important for us. And also I've covered this, how we have connected to the backend part. Okay, thereafter we have seen file uploading. File uploading is very important is considered very important in backend part, because whenever like on UI you wanted to like upload something, you wanted to, whether it is a large file, whether it's a low size file, then it is very important for us to learn file uploading. And I have shown this with the help of Cloudinary. Hope you remember, and if you have watched it, you must be remembering this thing. Okay, so after file uploading we have seen MVC architecture. MVC architecture, what is MVC? MVC is model view controller architecture. Means how we can like arrange our code, how we can arrange our code, and like in such a way that these code are well organized, these code are well organized in different folders. Okay, so this is all about microservice model view controllers, and you can just go on that lecture to watch entire thing. Thereafter we have seen how we can deploy our application. Okay, how we can deploy our like backend application on Heroku. Okay, so this is the very first thing that every backend engineer should know. And thereafter in this thing we have covered this first phase. This is the entire first phase we have covered. Okay, so in order to clear our basics, we have covered this first phase. Now let's move on to the next phase. In the next phase I have covered some of the important topics. What all are these important topics, brother? Let's see. The first important topic is MVC architecture. Definitely I have covered now only that how model view controller works and how we can well organize our code. This is the first thing. Second is node architecture. I must have like attached one diagram. No, okay. Second is node architecture. You might be knowing that node contains something like it, as it is a working on complete JavaScript, then it must be containing V8 engine inside it. Okay, and along with the V8 engine, and I think it has a libuv also, libuv. So if you don't know these concepts, just go on that video, like V8 engine, video of V8 engine, and you will get to know all these things. Okay, once you have completed this node architecture in depth, thereafter you can move to the synchronous and asynchronous execution and backend part. How we can do this, how these three are interrelated, how node architecture is related with synchronous as well as asynchronous execution, right? Okay, now once done with this, okay, so V8 engine will be covered in the node architecture only. Okay, V8 engine, you have to cover this V8 engine in very depth, and I am pressurizing this very much because it is very important for us. Like how browsers uh, is integrated with V8 engine, and earlier Spider Monkey was used for all the operations. Now V8 engine is used. So how V8 engine is performing all the kind of operations, whether synchronous or asynchronous, we have to see. Okay, and we have already seen all these things. Okay, now after this V8 engine, know about client server architecture. I have written service, which is wrong. So client server architecture plays an important role in understanding how the request is being sent to a server, and how server is responding back to the client. Okay, and what are the different methods that we can use, what are the different protocols, whether TCP, whether I like UDP we are using, or if you're not using this, how this communication is done using sockets, how this, or you can say events. Okay, we'll cover this in this lecture only, so don't mess up things. Okay, so this is the basic thing that we all should know. Client server architecture, I've covered entire thing. Thereafter, like, come to the advanced topic. What I have covered in advanced topic, let's see. The first topic is the concept of streams. Why do we need streams? Whenever you are using a kind of application like YouTube, we have YouTube, and whenever you stream on YouTube, whenever you do live streaming, okay, whenever you do live streaming on YouTube, then how these data are received constantly, how you are able to watch that entire video live. So data is coming from this producer. So the concept is very in depth, like how like a concept of producers, concept of brokers, concept of consumers, all these things are covered in the part of streams. So go through that video once, and your every doubt will be cleared out. Thereafter, we have seen event driven architecture. We have seen event driven architecture. Look, why do we need event driven architecture? The main reason for using this architecture, because earlier we were having different servers for different, like for database we have different servers for uh, separate things, or you can say we were working on monolithic architecture. We were working on monolithic architecture, monolith, where entire code is being written in a single code base. Entire code is being written in a single code base, and whenever any fault occurs in any point of that code, the entire code will get down, entire application will show downtime, will be in downtime error. Okay, so this was the main problem why event driven architecture has been introduced, and we have like resolved this issue with the help of by the help of creating different servers for different services. And okay, we are creating different servers for different services, like first service is for payments, second service is for like reviews, third service is for like we can say anything for location tracking. So every like server is being defined according to the services, and these services work in a container. Now if you don't know about containerization, what I am talking about, containerization. Okay, so if you don't know about containerization, you have to watch the entire Docker playlist. You should watch the Docker playlist. Okay, so done. That was the basic concept of why event driven architecture has been introduced. Thereafter, I have covered some topics of testing. Why do we need testing, bhaiya? Why do we need testing? Look, testing is a very crucial part of our backend. If you are like, if you are front end engineer, if you are backend engineer, or any of these things, you should be knowing the like functional testing. Okay, functional testing means like testing on component wise testing means taking out a component and like testing based on that thing. Okay, so I've covered the different types of testing also. What are the different types? Black testing, white testing, I don't know, I don't remember now. And basically there are two types of testing, functional and non-functional. Go on that lecture and watch entire thing. Thereafter, in the advanced topic, make sure to include all these things. All these things are very important for us to learn. Okay, and thereafter I came on microservices. Thereafter, after event driven architecture, I started microservices. In microservices, the first thing that we should know is what is the basic difference between monolithic and microservice architecture. This thing is very important for us. What is the difference between monolithic and microservice architecture? Okay, second thing is that node framework. If I am using microservice, look out very carefully that if I am using microservice, then in that case, look, I can make any application in entire node.js. Okay, but this thing is very complex for us. So node.js has introduced various frameworks. So Node.js has introduced various frameworks, various its framework. Like we have Molecular.js, we have Seneca.js, we have COTE. So these are the Node.js framework which helps us to create what? To create a microservice architecture based application. Okay, the main work of this entire like framework is to create microservice architecture application. So we are using Molecular.js, and in the entire lecture I have already covered that why are we only using Molecular.js? Why aren't we, sorry, why are we not using Seneca and Sote? These are the basic things I have already covered. Go watch that video. Okay. Thereafter covering the coming on to the Molecular.js, I've talked about what do we mean by events. What do we mean by events? Here we have seen events. What do we mean by brokers? How brokers are interrelated between client and servers? What is REPL console? These are the basic terms that you should know in order to create a microservice architecture based application. Okay. Thereafter we have, okay, thereafter we have services. I've talked about services. Here we have services and the operations that are being done on a particular service. First process is service discovery. Services are discovered, and once they are discovered they are registered, and once they are registered they are started or stopped with the help of continuous. Definitely uh, we will be using the concept of Docker, because we have to do containerization, we have to achieve orchestration. If you don't know what is like the terms that I've used now, go watch Docker playlist. Okay, so third step is services starting and services stopping. After covering this, we have transporter. We have transporters. What do you mean by transporter, bhaiya? Transporters helps in the communication between different services. As like, consider this is my two application, these are two services, sorry, these are two services and they wanted to communicate with each other. Okay, so what kind of communication I can use here? How services can interact? They will say hello. How are they going to tell this message to one another? So in this between we have a transporter, something called as transporter. They helps in the communication between two services. Okay, and now what kind of transporter we are using? In the Molecular.js we were using nats. Nats is a very famous and recommended like protocol. It is just a protocol. It is what? It is a protocol. For what, Vaya? It is a protocol for the better communication between different services. Okay, there are much different protocols like AMQP, SMTP, TCP, which is TCP is HTTP based protocol. Okay, AMQP. These all protocols based on sockets. These all protocol are based on sockets. Okay, now at that point, let me tell you that we will be having an entire playlist on sockets. First one is sockets, web sockets, you can say, how they are different from socket IO and web sockets. Thereafter we will be having a playlist on WebRTC, and I've already told this to you all that we will be having a project on the combination of these two. With the combination of these two, like any Zoom call, Zoom meeting, or Google Meet type, where we have the functionality of video calling or like audio calling or like chatting with each other. So these all things will be covered very soon. Don't panic. Thereafter we have covered microservice architecture. Okay, microservice architecture. If you don't know microservice architecture, yes, here I have covered this thing. This is the microservice architecture, which shows how the different, what are nodes. Look, I have forgotten about the nodes, concept of nodes. I have covered in the playlist. Okay, how different services. Look, these blue things are services. These blue things are services, and how these services are wrapped inside a node, and how these services communicate with each other. They communicate with the help of transporters. Now you will ask that what do we mean by transporters? I've already covered that thing. Transporters help in the communication between different services. Okay, so go watch the microservice architecture video. Thereafter, let me clear this out. Okay, while talking about node framework, I told you that we were using molecular JS for this. We were using molecular JS, which was a node.js framework. Okay, and but there are other frameworks also that we might use if you are a Java developer, if you are a Python developer. Look, I am a node.js developer. I am a node.js developer. Okay, so I am using molecular JS, right? But if you are a Java developer, you might use Spring Boot, you might use like these all these frameworks. It totally depends upon you, but make sure to verify the community support. First is community support, and second priority would be like uh, updates, regular updates of the entire framework, whether it is a weekly or bi-weekly. You can check that out. Okay, so these are the things that you should focus on. And if you are a Python developer, go with Flask, like CherryPy. These are the very popular frameworks that you can use to create microservice based application. Okay, and okay, so we have covered this thing. Now come to this thing. What do we mean by this? Bhaiya, you have already told that services communicate with each other. Okay, so there are different ways through which services can communicate. Okay, first I have told about while we will be using TCP. Okay, it internally uses HTTP protocol. Okay, so by using HTTPS, services can communicate. Second, through sockets. Third thing is Google remote procedure call, grpc, which is now it is in booming very much. But generally every services communicate with the help of socket IO, because it's different advantages. Okay, there are various enormous advantages of socket IO. Go like search on Google that what are the differences between grpc, sockets IO, and what protocol, what thing that we can use for the better communication of services, for the fast communication of services. Okay, we have used here nets. Remember that thing? We have used nets, which is a kind of transporter, based on sockets. So internally net uses sockets for communication. So that thing we have covered. Thereafter, what do we mean by circuit broker? What do we mean by circuit broker? But yeah, you have already told this thing. Like if there is a service, and due to any reasons, this service stopped running, then this is the duty of circuit breaker to resolve this thing, to resolve this scenario. What is the It will encounter the problem, it will update me that this is the problem, or it will troubleshoot, and it is his duty to restart the services. It is restart the services. So circuit broker does all this for me. Okay, so after circuit broker, we have distributed system. Like how everything happens from this is the client, and this is a one node. You can consider node equal to containers. And if you don't know any of this thing, container, if you want to know about containers, go watch Docker series. Okay, and what are nodes? if you want to know, go on Google and search for it. Okay, so nodes, you can say like node is just a kind of container inside which services run. This is our container and this is our service. Okay, and this is the basic thing, basic architecture that we use, to separate services. Like if I have payment services, I will use different services under different node inside one node. And I have like a review services, I'll use another node, and inside that I have my services will be running of review service. Okay, so this is the basic process and how they communicate, how they exchange data between themselves using broker and all, using transporter they can communicate. Now I will now in the next lecture I will start telling about how we can create our small project in microservices, for which you were waiting from so long. And this will be a very small project. Okay, this will be a very small project. Let me cover now only. So we have we have one UI where you can see that we have two things. First thing is create a post now, which is just a heading tag, you can imagine. And second thing, we have create topics. This is the input. This is the input type where you can write your topics that you want to create. Topics or post, you can say that whether you want to post anything in text format. Okay, and once you hit this button, there must be a button of submit, and once you hit this button, your post will be created. Your post will be created, and in this post you can comment n number of times. Your post will be created, first thing, and second thing, you can comment on this post n number of times, whatever you want. Okay, and these posts will be aligned one after another. Okay, like you are clicking on this submit button one after another, so the post will be created this way. Got it? So this is our basic thing. And in this small project, what services we will be creating? Two services will be created in this small project. First services will be of post, and second services will be of comment. Okay, as you can see, first thing that we have to focus on is to create how to create post, and second thing is how we can create comments. Okay, in this post, two functionality we have to cover. First is creating post, second is displaying post. Okay, first is post creation, second is post displaying. In the comment service, we have to do again two things. First is posting comments, second is showing comment. Okay, and here the comment which will be shown, it will inside a post. This comment will be binded, this comment is binded to this post. Okay, so that this comment should only appear in this particular post, having some IDs or anything. Okay, so this is our main project scenario, and what technology we will be using. I will be using React for front end, Express for backend, like to create two services for post, and second will be for comment. Okay, so I hope this project is clear to you, and I know that this project is not a very big project, but in order to start with this microservice, I've chosen this small project, and let's build this and see how microservices work, and how we can use Docker and all to uh, separate services inside the containers. This will be covered maybe in the next project, in the next small or large project, I don't know. But in this project we'll be creating all the services using microservice architecture, and we can cover everything. If you want this entire backend roadmap, I'll give this link into the description. Okay, let's meet in the next lecture, and don't forget to comment out whatever suggestions you have for me. I'll appreciate, whether it's negative or positive, I don't care. What I care is for your patience, your trust with me. Okay, and if you want this lecture in English or Hindi, comment it out. Thank